Would you be surprised if I told you that LSD and magic mushrooms has the power to not only extend your lifespan, but to increase the quality of your life by making you slowly age in a healthy way? LSD and magic mushrooms extending your lifespan? What? The psychedelic community loves to imagine these substances as a panacea, something that cures all of the world's problems. A magic pill to solve everything. LSD and magic mushrooms have been implicated in aiding in the relief of anxiety, depression, PTSD, treatment for alcoholism, treatment for tobacco addiction, increase in positive moods, and all of that is already mind-blowing. But now, 2 studies just came out. One study says LSD has the power to extend lifespan, and the other one states psilocybin extends cellular lifespan and improves survival. Those are some hefty claims, and massive claims require equally massive evidence. I've read both of these studies twice, and bro, it's pretty wild. But first, I want to start by talking about something that I've been talking about for over 3 years now. Yes, that's me. The psilocybin telomere hypothesis. It was the first theory that gave a reasonable explanation as to why psilocybin, which is the active ingredient inside magic mushrooms, can extend your life. The theory was published in 2020, and I believe it's one of the most remarkable possibilities about magic mushrooms that almost no one knows about. So let's start there. You are made of DNA. If you took all the DNA in your body and unfolded it into a straight line, it would be about 200 billion kilometers long. That's long enough to travel from Earth to the sun and back 650 times. The reason why all that DNA doesn't unfold and go into a straight line is because of little end caps on your chromosomes, which is where your DNA is stored. These end caps are called telomeres, and they're basically like the little plastic end of a shoelace. Keeps everything together. These telomeres are super important because these end caps protect the integrity of the chromosomes and make sure that things don't fall apart. Telomeres are also important when chromosomes replicate. And why do chromosomes replicate? Well, that's how we grow. It's also how we age. When this replication happens, a little bit of that telomere end cap breaks off from the chromosome. When it replicates again, a little more comes off, and a little more. And eventually, that protection the end cap provided is no longer there. When your chromosomes have no more telomere end caps left, they can't replicate. And when they can't replicate, your cells go into apoptosis, which means programmed cellular death. It sounds scary because it sort of is scary. It's the start of aging, which marks your eventual death. And yes, there are things you can do to shorten telomeres and accelerate this cellular death process. Chronic stress can shorten telomeres. Obesity and even major depression will deplete these telomeres, making you age and eventually die much faster. This is why some people may be 23 years old, but look and act like they're 43. But there are things you can do to keep those chromosome end caps nice and long. Things like eating healthy, exercising, and having a positive outlook on life. Basically, all the stuff you already know you should be doing. But can these shortened telomeres regrow? This is where the psilocybin telomere hypothesis comes in. When it comes to magic mushrooms, there are some recurrent themes that we've seen over the years. Psilocybin has the ability to regrow and re-strengthen brain cells. It's called neurogenesis and spinogenesis. Magic mushrooms also increase something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, something that aids in biological survival. Psilocybin increases the flow of serotonin in your brain, which makes you feel great during and after a trip. The psilocybin telomere hypothesis states that all of these effects are indicators of a sudden extension of telomere length. If the hypothesis is correct, it would show that psilocybin can stabilize and even reverse genetic aging. And this is the reason why I'm so thrilled about making this video, is because this study finally puts the psilocybin telomere hypothesis to the test. But before we get into that, let's look at this study that talks about LSD extending lifespan. This came from the Institute of Biomedical Science in the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And this study is not so much about LSD as it's about restricting your calories. Yes, calorie restriction. How many of you knew that the most reliable key to extending your lifespan is by not eating? Calorie restriction is defined by a 30 to 60% reduction of caloric intake without being malnourished. It's one of the most effective ways to reduce occurrences of age-related diseases like diabetes, cancer, heart disease, along with neurodegenerative disorders like dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's disease. Calorie restriction can also be seen in things like fasting, which has a laundry list of health benefits. When you eat, an internal network activates in your body, and it signals to your cells to grow, metabolize, and replicate. More nutrients means more growth. This is how bodybuilders bulk up, and also just how you put on weight. When you don't eat, this network or pathway is blocked and inhibited. Your cells don't really grow. Now, they go into maintenance and repair mode. Calorie restriction allows your cells to clear out cellular waste. It reduces the toxic genetic material that accumulates with age, like spring cleaning for the body. But what if there was a way to mimic calorie restrictions, but not restrict any calories and still get the benefits of calorie restriction? These researchers believe that LSD would be the key to this, so they put it to test in the study. They didn't use humans in the study. Instead, they tested this LSD caloric restriction idea on a group of nematodes, which are a specific type of worm. They put each worm on a tray with 1 microgram of LSD, and they tested the effects of LSD at different time points. What the researchers found was that LSD increased the lifespan of these worms by 25%. It also delayed their aging process. They also found the longer these worms were exposed to LSD, the longer the life extension. So now we have conclusive proof that shows LSD increases the lifespan in nematodes, and since the metabolism of these nematodes closely resembles humans, LSD must increase the lifespan of humans, right? I mean, that's right there. Well, there are 2 things about the study that made my jaw drop in disbelief. The first is the sheer amount of LSD they gave these poor nematodes. A nematode larvae weighs around 1 nanogram, and they gave each nematode 1 microgram of LSD. That's an astoundingly high dose. For reference, the average human weighs 70 kilograms, and the average dose of LSD is 100 micrograms. If you weigh a nanogram and receive 1 microgram of LSD, that's over 2.5 million times larger than a standard recreational dose of LSD. It's a dose that is far beyond anything a human could physically or mentally handle. For humans, it would be lethal. That's enough for every person in a city the size of Houston, Texas, to have at least 1 dose of LSD. And one more thing that was eye-catching. Researchers found that the caloric restrictive benefits of LSD were only activated under a chronically high and extended dose of LSD. These nematodes needed to be under the continuous effects of LSD for 10 days before the life extension benefits could occur. But anytime before those 10 days of continuous LSD exposure, there were no beneficial effects of caloric restriction and life extension. Nothing really changed. That was the paper that states LSD extends lifespan. Now, let's look at the one published just weeks after that one, which makes the bold statement that psilocybin extends cellular lifespan and improves survival. This study was done in the Department of Medicine at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. What excited me about this study was one of the first things they mentioned is the existence of the psilocybin telomere hypothesis. Finally, this theory is getting the recognition it deserves. To test if psilocybin can in fact extend cellular lifespan, they first took human lung cells and basically soaked them in psilocin, which is what psilocybin breaks down to when you ingest it. They found that an amount of just 10 micrograms of psilocin resulted in a 29% extension of lifespan compared to lung cells that didn't have the psilocin. Not only that, they also found that a higher dose of 100 micrograms of psilocin led to a 51% extension in cellular lifespan. And this reinforces something we've always known in psychedelic science. The effects of psychedelics, including magic mushrooms, are dose dependent, meaning The higher the trip, the higher the therapeutic benefits obtained. And in this case, the higher the dose, the greater the cellular life extension. That's more bad news for all you microdosers out there. And that's a heavy topic, and we'll get into it in another episode of Your Drug on Brains. And as far as testing the psilocybin telomere hypothesis, researchers found that telomere length was shortened in cells that didn't have psilocin, but the length was preserved in cells that were treated with psilocin. This gives science the greatest evidence that this psilocybin telomere hypothesis is less of a theory and more of a reality. Next, these researchers wanted to see if psilocybin extends the lifespan of mice. They chose to only use female mice since there's evidence that the effects of psilocybin differs from males and females. Remember, they wanted to check if psilocybin can be used for anti-aging. So the age of these mice were 19 months old, which is the equivalent of about 60 to 65 human years. The dose they gave to these mice, it was modeled after a human study in which 25 milligrams of psilocybin was given to people to look at the effects of psilocybin-assisted therapy. So the psilocybin dose these mice took was the equivalent to about 2.5 grams of dried magic mushrooms. A big dose for some, not big enough for others. When psilocybin was given to these mice, they found that their survival rate was 80% higher when compared to the mice that didn't have psilocybin. That is significant. They also found that the psilocybin mice had improved fur quality, hair growth, and a reduction of white hair, which we all know indicates age. Now we have absolute, conclusive proof that magic mushrooms can not only extend your life, but make the process of aging more healthy, right? We all learned this, right? There are just a couple things about this study that raises some questions. Since they only used elder mice in the study, we don't know if these effects can be applied to a younger adult population. And this brings up another point. We don't know at what point in life psilocybin should be administered to exert its benefits. If we start giving kids psilocybin, would it have a negative effect in their natural cognitive growth? These are all questions that need to be addressed in further research that looks to assess lifespan extension within LSD and magic mushrooms. But this is an incredibly promising and groundbreaking step. But as groundbreaking as these two studies are, don't start taking LSD and magic mushrooms because you think they're going to extend your life. Also, don't stop taking medication that has been prescribed to you because you think studies like this give you proof that LSD and psilocybin will be a better fix for you. And now that we have data that shows LSD and psilocybin may extend your lifespan, are you guys even ready for all the psychedelic retreats and wellness centers that are going to use these studies to sell whatever product to you? That's just the way this whole psychedelic scene is, so I don't know. So which psychedelic do you think actually has the greatest potential to extend lifespan in humans? Would it be LSD and its ability to mimic the benefits received from calorie restriction, which results in the healthy extension of lifespan? Or is it psilocybin and its apparent effects on preserving telomeres in your chromosomes that store and protect your DNA from destruction? Or are both equally effective in extending life within humans? Or maybe they just don't work at all. We just don't know. But as I was recording this show, I noticed a group that is once again putting LSD to the test of life extension. And it's the same group that awarded me a fellowship, so naturally, they make a lot of correct decisions. Shout out to Sidal. Hope you guys figure out if we should be putting bonder paper in every retirement home. So to recap, LSD and psilocybin may be able to extend lifespan, but by completely different methods. As you grow older, your DNA and chromosomes replicate, and when this happens, the end caps of your chromosomes, telomeres, they get shorter and shorter until they can't replicate anymore, and they die, and then you die. With psilocybin, life extension can possibly happen by protecting the end caps on your chromosomes, which increases the chances for your cells to survive, and you are made of cells. With LSD, life extension works in a different way. The key is restricting calories. When you don't eat, your cells go into repair and maintenance mode. It cleans up all the toxic goo that your body left behind, which extends the length and quality of your life. This study showed that LSD can potentially mimic the benefit from restricting calories without actually restricting calories. While both studies show incredible potential, there are some things that may need to be further researched before we can effectively say that LSD and magic mushrooms extend your lifespan. That is enough talking from me. If you want to know more about my opinions on these two studies, then join my Patreon. Bro, you better have enjoyed this episode of Your Drug on Brains because the research I put into these episodes is crazy extensive. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, I read all of them, and follow on X, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Tipado.